Noon. Thank you all for being here today. This is our July 30th, 2026 briefing. Our chairman is just a bit late, so what we're going to do is our first item, which is a closed session. So, Ms. Manager, could you call out the...
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I need to ask the board to consider a motion to go into closed session to discuss a matter to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, or conditions of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee or prospective public officer or employee pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A6. Following the closed session, the meeting will reconvene.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that? Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you so much. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We will return.
We've already called this meeting to order back at 1 o'clock. We had a closed session discussion on a personnel matter. So we will now return to the briefing, and I'm going to turn the briefing over to the county manager for our normal business, and then we will just review the planning and zoning items at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioners, staff, and guests. Agenda item number 1 is a public hearing on the zoning petition of Julia Wall and Wall Family of North Carolina, LLC, Jennifer Loeb, James Martin Sieber, and James Martin Serber III from RS20 and GI to LIS. Chris Murphy, our planning director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon. Yes, we have briefed this one time, so I will try to zip through this a little quicker. But yes, this is a 128.54 acre rezoning request on the northwest side of Bethania, Rural Hall Road, north of Tobacconville Road, and the terminus of Glade Street from residential building, single family, 20,000 square foot lot, RS20, and general industrial to limited industrial special use. This is a subject property shown on the Forward 2045 Growth Management Area Plan map. It is located within GMA 3 suburban neighborhoods. It is in an area of unincorporated Forsyth County, surrounded on several sides by the town of Rural Hall. This is a subject property shown highlighted in yellow, again 128 acres. You do have a surrounding zoning of GI to the north and northeast. Residential single-family zoning to the east, some limited business commercial zoning across Bethania Rural Hall Road to the southeast, and then you have some residential to the south and west, and a little bit of GIS to the west-northwest. Subject property shown on the countywide aerial imagery. There are a couple of farm ponds on this piece of property. This property has several homes on it and has been used for agricultural purposes. There are a few streams that run through the central, west central portion of the site. And there is a existing Duke Energy substation to the north, as well as transmission lines that run through the site from the northwest to the southeast through the subject property. This is the subject property shown on the Rural Hall Area Plan update. The area plan recommends mixed use for this property, mixture of commercial and residential uses. This is looking north from Bethania Rural Hall Road into the subject property. This is looking south along Bethania Rural Hall Road, the Rural Hall Town Hall there in the image on the southeast side of Bethania Rural Hall Road. This is looking east along Bethania Rural Hall Road. The subject property is to the left. This is looking northwest on Glade Street, which will extend into the subject property as an emergency access. This is that terminus where Glade Street would enter into the property. And again, this is a secondary entrance proposed and conditioned as a emergency access. This is looking east-northeast from Glade Street at downtown Rural Hall. This is looking north into the subject property, north of Nazareth Lutheran Church. This is one of those ponds that is proposed to remain on the site. This is looking north into the subject property. This also is looking north into the subject property, showing the existing power lines and the substation in the background. This is the site plan. It is comprised of 3 primary buildings, both 2 stories in height, 2 stories, 85 feet in height. It does show the courtyard where the generator equipment will be screened on the interior of the sites. There's also a noise attainment wall that will enclose those. That's approximately 35 feet in height. Again, existing farm ponds. You do have some proposed stormwater management ponds. This is the primary entrance off of Bethania Rural Hall Road. It will be gated, and this entire site will be fenced. This is looking at a representative sample of the building elevations. brick, concrete panel, tilt-up panels, some window features, and then this is the noise containment fence where the generators would be behind that fence, and you also have some air handling units in that area and also on top of the building. This is looking at that outdoor equipment enclosure. Again, generators, air handling equipment. There's also air handling equipment on top of the roof. Site plan showing outdoor equipment elevations. Again, that noise attainment fencing, and then some decorative wrought iron fence, which will be used anywhere that the security fencing is visible from a public way. This is an example of the air handling units, both isometric and a plan sheet cut showing the different air handling units. And if there are any questions specifically related to that, I will defer to the petitioner. As far as the environmental features, mentioned the existing farm ponds that will remain, the stormwater management ponds. The site does slope to this central area of the site. There is a creek. They're also proposing to keep this area undeveloped and potentially dedicate that, it's my understanding, to the town of Rural Hall for the potential park expansion. At your last briefing, there was a request for an alternate site plan. It's my understanding at that time that the request was to kind of take that long building on this western edge and perhaps rotate it slightly about 45 degrees. I think they looked at that and could not really make the site work with the stream feature. So what they did do was, instead of having a long rectangular building, they have essentially created the same amount of square footage in a square building, and have proposed the generators to the north of that. So again, it does remove that long wall from kind of this property line. But again, it could have other impacts that could negatively impact neighbors. It is adjacent to the GIS. So again, if that is something that the board wishes to consider, it is a site plan alternate that is included in this. And once we'll get it uploaded into your system, but we have not done that yet. Tara Jolly on our staff was not in until around lunchtime, so hopefully we'll get that loaded. We're also waiting for the revised written consent to conditions to be signed. We have a verbal agreement on changing the decibel level from 60 dBA to 55 dBA. And then also a little bit of an exception for times when they have to run the generator for emergency purposes or for testing, allow that to be up to 60, but just the day-to-day would be at this 55 decibel level. So that, again, we don't have those signed, revised, written consent and conditions, but that's where we are at this point, and we'll be working towards that between now and Thursday. In summary, the staff has worked extensively with the developer to propose several prescriptive conditions of approval to mitigate the potential visual, auditory, and environmental impacts of the request on the surrounding properties. Those have already been agreed upon. Again, we're still working out this last condition. Anyway, those, along with the site plan changes that they have made, certainly makes the site plan better. Should you choose to approve it. However, from a staff and planning board perspective, the scale and intensity of the proposed use, we still believe could result in significant off-site impacts to nearby residents despite the conditions. The proposal is inconsistent with the Rural Hall Area Plan updates recommendation for mixed-use development of the subject property. And the request is inconsistent with the recommendations of Forward 2045 to protect neighborhoods from inappropriate non-residential encroachment. Given that this was heard by the planning board at their June 11th, 2026 public hearing, there were numerous speakers in opposition and concerns related to the incompatibility of the use with surrounding uses, potential impact to property values, impact to the environment, impact of noise, and inconsistency with Forward 2045 and the Rural Hall Area Plan update. Following the public hearing and extensive discussion, the planning board did vote to recommend denial of the request by a 7-2 vote. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions. I believe the petitioners are here again if there are additional questions and clarifications that you need of them.
Questions for Chris? Thank you. I got just a couple of comments. One, I did want to ask our attorney if he would talk just a little bit about, we've all heard about moratoriums all around us, moratoriums in Davie County and Surrey County. The commissioners and Stokes considered it. Mike Davidson's looked at it, and there was even an editorial in the Winston-Salem Journal yesterday talking about Greensboro City Council and considering a moratorium. And I want to talk a little bit about how that, because we've all been at least informed about legislation on down zoning, and maybe to see if you can explain that piece about whether, I mean, even a moratorium is something that is consistent or legal with the current law of down zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have been sounding the alarm over the down zoning provision for the last year and a half. It's in 160D-601 subpart D. Basically what that says is once you have zoning with a particular use, you can't down zone is what they call it. You can't lessen the use without every single owner of similarly zoned property in the county agreeing, which would be impossible practically. And so it really limits the ability of local government to respond when a new concern comes up. What we have in a separate statute about a moratorium allows you to pass a moratorium not on the currently applied project, but say for the future. It allows you to kind of push pause and say, okay, we're not going to consider any of blank for a set period of time while we do research to determine how we should change our UDO to address concerns. So the issue with us in Forsyth County is that we already have in our UDO a definition, it's called computer data centers. So we already have that definition. That definition was written many years ago, and it may not have anticipated these huge data centers, but nevertheless, the definition is so broad that it basically includes centers that process data with computers. So it would include, by the definition, any size of data center. And so legally, it would be very difficult for Forsyth County to pass any kind of moratorium that would be upheld in courts. And by the way, the most recent budget, which passed a few weeks ago, has provisions in there which grant attorney's fees. If somebody challenges a change to the UDO, they win, we would have to pay for their attorney's fees. So that's another new wrinkle in that. So it really limits the ability of the county to pass a moratorium. Having said that, this is a slightly different situation because it requires a rezoning. So the proponent cannot, as of right, put in a data center in this particular property outside of Rural Hall. So on Thursday, you as a board will listen to both sides and you can make the legislative decision as to whether you think a rezoning is proper or not.
Thank you very much. I also want to mention that back for the July 9th meeting, we actually invited Duke Energy to come and talk about energy, our grid strength, rate, impact on rates of large users, et cetera. We also invited them to come in between that time, July 9th and today. We invited them again. In both cases, they were not able to come, but they did provide us with, we asked them the questions via email, and we did get a response from their new regional communications guy. It's a community coordinator guy. And so I was going to ask Kyle Haney, our deputy county manager, if he would mind just sharing that because it actually gets at the use part for large users from a Duke Energy email.
Yes, sir.
And you can identify the person that's in it.
Yes, sir. So it was Jason Stogner, who is the new district manager, government and community relations for Duke Energy for this region. So he did provide some information for the questions that were asked, and I'll just read through what he provided. So on the question of how Duke is planning for the increasing demand for large power users, he answered that North Carolina has been the #1 or #2 state for business for each of the last 6 years. The economic development pipeline in the Carolinas include a very diverse mix: manufacturing, life sciences, automotive, food and beverage, aerospace and logistics projects, to name a few, in addition to data centers, along with strong residential growth. People want to live and work here, and it's our responsibility to serve them reliably and at the lowest possible cost. Across all industries, customer energy needs over the next 15 years are expected to grow at 8 times the growth rate of the previous 15 years. We plan for this growth through a resource plan filed with the North Carolina Utilities Commission every 2 years. Our latest plan, which was submitted in October and is being evaluated by North Carolina regulators now, evolved to adapt to the growth we're seeing. On the question regarding the perception that large power users contribute to higher electric rates for residential customers, he responded, while we have an obligation to serve all customers in our territory, Duke Energy does not select, own, or develop data center projects. Our job is to work closely with local leaders and economic development officials to help power their communities in ways that align with their goals and vision for growth. Data centers and other new large load customers must agree to various long-term financial commitments, including safeguards that protect other customers, before Duke Energy will consider adding them to the grid. These include paying the costs associated with connecting to the power grid, minimum contract terms, financial security requirements, termination charges, and the ability for us to reduce their energy use during high-demand periods as a way to maintain reliable service for all customers. As new large electricity users like data centers come online, their investment help absorb fixed system costs, reducing pressure on future rates and supporting a stronger, more resilient grid. Over time, that means more reliable service and lower costs than customers would otherwise face without that growth. In May, we filed an analysis with our regulator, the North Carolina Utilities Commission, that demonstrates the 16 data center projects that recently signed electric service agreements with us will provide $3.6 billion in benefits to other customers over the term of their 15-year agreements and reduce residential customers' bills by $4 to $6 a month through 2040. To the question of what factors drive electric rate increases, he replied, we're investing in critical upgrades to improve reliability, harden the grid against storms, and support North Carolina's growth, even while we do everything we can to keep rates as low as possible for our customers. We're increasing the grid's reliability and resiliency even as we expand to accommodate growth. We added about 150,000 customers in North Carolina over the last 2 years, primarily residences and small businesses, which required the addition of 51,000 distribution poles and 4,100 miles of distribution wire, for example. From transformers to poles to power lines, material costs have increased dramatically over the last few years, and our proposed rates reflect this reality. For example, prices for essential grid items such as transmission cross arms, distribution transformers, and voltage regulators have more than doubled over the last 5 years. Through our size, we were able to negotiate better prices than smaller utilities, but material prices have climbed substantially. To the question of how those costs are allocated, he replied, the costs we charge our customers reflect the actual cost to serve each class of customer. Subject to the approval of regulators, the North Carolina Utilities Commission is reviewing our proposed rates now. While large industrial and commercial customers use more electricity than a residential customer, their demand is typically steady and more predictable. As such, it costs Duke Energy less per kilowatt hour to serve that customer than a typical household, which is a much more sporadic and unpredictable demand for electricity. One large industrial customer might use the same amount of electricity as an entire neighborhood of homes, but in that neighborhood, each resident has its own unique energy needs and usage patterns, as opposed to a single industrial customer whose usage pattern is more consistent every day. Additionally, the majority of large loads receive power directly from our transmission system, the highways of our grid, not the distribution system that feeds small businesses and winds through neighborhoods. Since large loads aren't served by the distribution system, they don't pay for those distribution upgrades. For perspective, distribution makes up 38% of our proposed investments in 27-28. And to the question of how recent rate case settlement to lower costs, we have listened to feedback from our customers and stakeholders. After extensive negotiation, we have reached partial settlement with the public staff that will significantly reduce projected costs for our customers. If the settlements are approved by regulators, the monthly increase for a typical residential customer would be about $9.74 in 2027 and $5.68 in 2028. Across all customer classes, rates would increase 5.6% in 2027 and 3.7% in 2028. The total increase across both years was lowered from our original request of 14.3% to 9.3% now. We believe this is a meaningful compromise, one that will keep customer rates low while still allowing us to make the needed investments to serve North Carolina's growing economy.
Any questions of Kyle on that?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask some follow-up questions. In the response that you received from Duke Power, Kyle, did they mention anything about the current pending rate case in terms of what its assumptions were with regard to new generating capacity that would be needed over the next few years?
I don't believe so. That, all I have is what was on that paper, so I don't believe that spoke to that.
Was there anything said with regard to the most recent submission on the carbon plan, or what it anticipated needing to satisfy anticipated demand?
I don't have the answer for that either, no, sir.
Did it say anything about their projection that approximately 80% of their anticipated new demand in the next few years is going to be attributable to data centers and other large load customers?
I do not think it broke out what the demand would be by class type, no, sir.
I would suggest that the answer received by Duke is at best incomplete.
But, I mean, just the last part, there was some, in the middle part, there was some part about examining the impact on rates as a result of large users that actually resulted in, because of the distribution of payments, resulted actually in a so many dollars per month savings for kind of the residential consumer. I heard that correctly, right?
I can reread that part, yes, sir. So it said, in May, we filed an analysis with our regulator, North Carolina Utilities Commission, that demonstrates the 16 data center projects that recently signed electric service agreements with us will provide $3.6 billion in benefits to other customers over the term of the 15-year agreements and reduce residential customer bills by $4 to $6 a month through 2040, is what their analysis they submitted to the regulator was.
That's kind of the impact on the individual customer.
Well, that's assuming that the proposed build-out takes place as anticipated, and that is assuming the demand follows the predicted course. Was there any reference in the response that you received from Duke about the pending rate case any information to the effect that the State Attorney General's office has declined to sign on to the settlement and indicated that they will continue to resist the proposed compromise rate increase?
No, sir, I don't think it referenced that in this response, no, sir.
I would repeat my suggestion that the response from Duke is at best incomplete.
Any other questions or comments so far? I've got just really sort of three other things that I jotted down. One, we had some discussion about setting aside funds to protect homeowners in terms of declining property values. And as I recall, the developer said they were going to look at that issue and maybe come up with sort of a way, either both a way and or how that would be done and an amount of money that would be set aside. Any further
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I mean, I think that we might need to hear from the petitioner. The county attorney and myself feel like that is not an appropriate land use condition. If there's another avenue whereby it could be attached through some type of a separate agreement, there's supposedly an agreement going on with the town of Rural Hall about annexation, and I'll defer to the county attorney, but again, we don't feel like that's a land use condition is an appropriate place for like an escrow fund to be managed by a local government.
Any other comments you'd like to make, Gordon?
No, I would just say that I agree with Mr. Murphy, and that's something that could potentially be challenged if this went sideways down the road. But I did suggest that it would be if they're going to have some kind of agreement for annexation with the town of Rural Hall, then this could be something that could be folded into that also, because it is, I believe, mostly residents of Rural Hall that would be affected by this.
Okay, thank you. The only other two things then, I actually, Commissioner Bessie sent me the article about basically some of the problems that have occurred when new data centers, the closed loop systems, basically are flushed at the very beginning. The building's finished, system gets flushed, and apparently there have been problems in several locations, including Loudoun County that I referenced last week, about basically contaminants that are beyond what filtering, with the pre-filtering before it goes into the sewer line, do not take care of. And I'm assuming that whatever kinds of rules, I mean, apparently Loudon has added a couple of different kind of effluent rules, and apparently the company, the place this was discovered actually was a data center in Wyoming. And I'm just curious if developers ever heard of that, and if they are kind of prepared to respond in any way to that, because that is a kind of the one time when that flushing occurs, or I guess conceivably when other cleanouts occur for maintenance, that maybe it requires an additional treatment. I don't know if you're familiar with that or heard about it. If you'd like to share anything, that'd be great.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Fest with Montrose. We're the project management firm. Yes, I can address the cooling system, especially the one in Wyoming. From what I've read, I researched into that one specifically when I read it, and I think it occurred a few weeks ago. That one, it was actually a subcontractor that released those chemicals, flushed into the sewer system prior to treatment. From what I read, it wasn't the owner, it wasn't the main prime contractor, it was a subcontractor that, whether it was willful negligence or just negligence, they haven't stated in any of the press releases, but they did say that the contractor, the subcontractor, released them in an inappropriate manner that didn't meet the environmental rules out there.
In other words, meaning the construction was not correct, that introduced something into the lines that then got flushed out?
From my understanding, it
I mean,
was.
I don't see how anybody would want to put into a contaminant unless the contaminant was a result of faulty or inappropriate construction methods.
That's what I've read. It was an inappropriate construction method, that it was not a known operational thing. This was during the construction. From my understanding, they were flushing it while they were assembling it, from what I read out there. So this could have been avoided? Absolutely. Was it a contractor issue? Yes. Subcontractor issue. So could additional oversight prevented it? I believe so.
And in the same article, there was a reference back to Loudoun County again, that they had either had experienced it the same way, or that they had kind of written some guidelines or some things that they actually provided to, I guess, to contractors before they started. You maybe read the same article I read.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not aware of the Loudoun County best practices, but if there are best practices out there, we are absolutely willing to adopt them regarding the flushing of the chemicals, and it's during the manufacturing process, construction process.
That's good. And the last thing I wanted to mention, actually, I'd received an email from one of your folks about and we were talking about noise, and we're talking about the difference between evaporation and because evaporation, as I understand it now, is the way the Maiden County, the Maiden, North Carolina data center, the Apple data center, used those types of cooling, towers. So they were getting the heat taken out of the water partly by evaporation, which obviously uses more water because that's built into the system, but they're very quiet. And then the closed loop, a pure closed loop system that you're proposing not to include, partly because that's the direction the General Assembly seems to be taking, although it's not final, actually provides a different kind of, is noisier. And I did, in fact, three of us here actually went out to just, for the purpose of just kind of unannounced, to listen to the Maiden County, the Maiden, North Carolina data center operating. Couldn't hear a thing both at the gate, at the fences, or whatever. But the lingering issue for me is that people ought to be able to go out on their back porch and not be bothered by a noise that is making them uncomfortable. They may not be able to hear it inside. It's fairly low decibel, but it's one of those kind of present noises. And I guess I wish where is there a location of a data center that's close to neighborhoods where somebody could go ride over and see it. There are 14 or 15 data centers, or 16, I guess Duke Energy said. Where's there one that has a closed loop system like that, that if someone wanted to listen to it?
Honestly, I would have to do some research and double check. I know there's Microsoft has just put out a press release, I would say a few months ago, that they're retrofitting all their data centers in a maintenance cycle. Depending on a climate zone that each of the data centers are located, they're going to use different cooling technology, because cooling technology is definitely climate driven. There's stoichiometry involved, but I believe in where we fall in the climate zone area, Microsoft is currently going to be retrofitting existing data centers, as well as when they're doing new construction, which includes up there in Catawba County, is a hybrid evaporative condenser system. So it runs fully mechanical up until it's about 85 degrees ambient, and then they start doing a little bit of evaporative cooling just to help it when the ambient temp gets above 85 degrees. I do not know if those have been installed yet. And unfortunately, Microsoft is very closed-lip about the technologies that they use inside their data centers. I can talk to a few resources and find out if there's any of these hybrid evaporative condensers out there, fully closed-loop, within a short driving distance. I know Meta's got one in Forest City. I'm not sure of the cooling technology they're using out there in Forest City. That one was built coming out of the recession, so I think 2012 timeframe.
Any other questions by anybody?
If I can address, you asked about the property value protection of the neighbors. And yeah, we were discussing this with staff and the best way to approach it. And Mr. Drury with Drox Group is here just to confirm that we are willing to put up a fund of $1 million, and we were proposing to have it administered by a third-party escrow agent, whether it's a title company, an attorney's office that is, approved to handle escrow amounts, as well as having a process of engaging an MAI certified appraiser or another appraiser that this third-party administrator approves to do a valuation prior to the data center being announced or even filed for rezoning, and then another valuation after the data center's been built. And if there is a loss of property value, that the homeowner can make a claim against this fund. And the fund would be administered by a third party. It wouldn't be a government entity. It wouldn't be the developer or the owner. This would be either a title company or an escrow agent, someone that does this for a living.
And I did hear our attorney and Chris Murphy talk about that would probably, if something like that were to happen, it'd be kind of a rural hall kind of issue as a condition in annexation. But I know that when that was mentioned on July the 9th, we've had a few emails about that, of course, kind of suggesting that depending on who's eligible to make such a claim in terms of proximity to the property, that $1 million may not go very far if the property really was declining substantially in value. And I can understand that point. I'm not sure $1 million would go very far if that were really the case. Now, back to one of those other cases, it'd be great to know there are clearly some data centers across the country close to neighborhoods, and I'm just wondering of the problems that that kind of thing has happened before, and do they experience these declines in property values too? The hard part about it is there's a lot of information out on the internet that none of us knows exactly. It's hard to verify. Verification and kind of what is really true and what's happening is sometimes very difficult. But I appreciate you sharing that, and I think that's the context we're in.
Is there a value that the board would like to propose? If $1 million you don't feel is sufficient, And Mr. Jury's here today, so I figured today's a good,
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I think our attorney has made very clear that this is something that we cannot attach as a condition to a zoning case. And while this is an interesting, theoretical exploration, I'm not sure this is the time and place.
Yeah, I think we're not the ones, but I do think that was a part of a rural hawk could do that if they wanted to. I mean, first I've heard of that particular thing today, but because we did discuss it on July 9th. Any other questions?
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item number 2 is Mr. Murphy's as well. It's a public hearing and consideration on a special use permit requested by Elizabeth Ann Tucker for a land clearing and inert debris landfill for property located on the south side of Watkins Ford Road, east of High Point Road and west of Idlewild Road.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. Yes, this is a request for an LCID greater than 2 acres, which is an elected body special use permit. We're not going to bring the county attorney to go over the procedures for that at this point, but I'm sure we'll probably hit that again for the hearing on Thursday evening. But again, it is special use permit, so it's quasi judicial. If you're contacted by anyone, just please tell them that you can't discuss it outside of the hearing. The proposal is located in GMA 4, and that says Legacy, and it should say Forward 2045. We'll get that fixed. But it is on the Forward 2045 Growth Management Area Plan. It is located within GMA 4, which is the future growth area. This is a subject property highlighted in yellow. It is an almost 70-acre piece of property. You do see it highlighted in yellow. The existing LCID that's operated by the Tuckers is located in this area, if you see where my mouse is. So it's about 500 feet away. The cell itself, where they're currently doing fill, is about 1,000 feet away. That was approved in 2018 by the Board of County Commissioners, which predated this PRD within the town of Kernersville. So that PRD was built after this LCID was approved and had already begun operations. Subject property outlined in yellow on the countywide aerial imagery. Again, you've got I-74 to the south. You've got Watkins Ford Road. Again, the subdivision in Kernersville. Some underdeveloped property to the west, and I believe that is a church. And then this is, again, the existing LCID that's operated by the Tuckers. This is subject property shown on the Southeast Forsyth County area plan update. It is shown as an area for large lot residential, and that's primarily due to the fact that there is not any sewer in that area. And this is looking south at the subject property from Watkins Ford Road. And this is looking west on Watkins Ford Road. The subject property is on the left. That's a turn lane into the subdivision in Kernersville. And then in the background, probably back in this area, is the current location of the LCID operated by the Tuckers. And this is looking east on Watkins Ford Road. The subject property is on the right. This is the site plan. It is 2 cells. It's approximately, I've got a note here, 37 acres proposed for fill of that 69 acres. For perspective and context, the existing LCID that the Tuckers have been operating since 2018 is 10 acres. And they still have some ways to go to fill that. But again, I think they're trying to be proactive and have another area for disposal of this land clearing and inert debris. Just so folks understand, this is not a construction and demolition landfill. It's not a sanitary landfill. This is for dirt and other inert debris such as rock and vegetation. Again, since this is a special use permit, there are 4 findings that would have to be met. One of those findings is that the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed and developed according to the application and plan as submitted and approved. In our analysis, the answer to that is no, it will not have an adverse impact. The proposed use, LCID greater than 2 acres, is not a threat to public health or safety. The presumption is that if the use is permitted in the zoning district, it is not a threat to the public health or safety unless proven otherwise, which will be part of the public hearing. The second finding is that the use meets all required conditions and specifications. Staff's analysis of that is that yes, it does. The subject request will meet the minimum requirements of the UDO, and the site plan that is before you does meet those requirements. The third finding deals with injuring of budding or adjoining property values, and since planning staff does not have the expertise to make property value determinations, no recommendation is made on that. That testimony will need to be presented as part of the public hearing. The fourth finding is that the location and character of the use that developed according to the application and plan submitted and approved will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located and in general conformity with Forward 2045. Yes, there is an existing LCID landfill greater than 2 acres use located within 500 feet of the property. The presumption also is that if the use is permitted in the zoning district, it is compatible with the area that it is located in unless proven otherwise. As far as the recommendation, a land clearing and inert debris landfill greater than 2 acres requires the issuance of a special use permit from the elected body following a site plan review by the planning board in the AG zoning district. The planning board did determine that the site plan meets all UDO requirements on March 12th of 2026. The next step for this is to hold the public hearing, which will be on Thursday evening, to make a determination regarding those 4 findings of fact, and based on those findings, either issue or deny the special use permit request. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chris?
Is the developer a known quantity?
They have, again, Ms. Tucker, I believe, is the property owner. It is her sons, I believe, that operate the LCID. There is an existing LCID that's been in operation for 8 or 9 years. And they do, again, I don't know much about the LCID business, but I know that they have been fairly successful enough to expand their existing operation, which was done about 18 months ago before this board, and again, to look to bring in more property to do this. So again, I would say that they are reputable in that space.
And I think you mentioned before that the constitution of the materials to be deposited there would not have any adverse effect on the stream bed.
Correct.
Okay. And there were single-family homes to the north and west, and there's vegetative screening proposed to the north. Is that correct?
There is along Watkins Ford.
And as to the west?
There's a requirement to either retain vegetation and or supplement with vegetation along all properties except for the entrance into the project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Quick question, if I may. I think I did get one email about this. To whom should I forward it for a response that basically we can't really talk about it outside the hearings?
I mean, I'd be happy to do that. But yes, please don't respond to anyone. I know it's difficult because you are elected officials, but this is a sworn quasi-judicial hearing that will happen on Thursday. And just to clarify, Chris is just, giving you general information. He will be sworn in on Thursday, and he will present the formal information during the hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Agenda item number 3 is a resolution recognizing August as National Emergency Management Awareness Month in Forsyth County, and we'll have representatives from emergency management here on Thursday. Agenda item number 4 is a resolution supporting the designation of the North Carolina Highway 67 Yadkin River Bridge as the Jimmy R. Hutchins Joe C. Matthews Bridge. Mr. Chair, do you want to provide just a brief update on how that came on our agenda?
Actually, I received an email from the Yadkin County Chairman of the Commissioners, and actually said that they had been talking about ways to particularly honor both of them. Jimmy Hutchins actually was there and done a lot of things in Yadkin, and Joe Matthews actually was kind of the predecessor of the PTRC, I guess called the Northwest Piedmont Regional Council. which served, at that time, we were served, and provided their bios and asked if we would be willing to support, since we are the adjoining county to the bridge, we'd be willing to support it. And so that's why it's here.
Okay. Agenda item number 5, we're going to handle at the end of today's briefing. Agenda item number 6 is a resolution declaring intent of the County of Forsyth, North Carolina, to participate in the Commercial Property Assessed Capital Expenditure, the CPACE program. Helena Fiore from our Community Economic Development Department will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today, I'd like to share a little more information about the statewide CPACE program, discuss our involvement in the program, and then answer any questions you have about this economic development tool. CPACE stands for Commercial Property Assessed Capital Expenditure. This title represents both the name of the statewide program that counties opt into and the name of a very specific type of private financing. This private financing is between commercial property owners and their bank. Opting into the CPACE program makes this available to property owners and the banks within Forsyth County. At the state level, there have been 19 municipalities who have opted into this program. If we opt into the CPACE program, we allow a new financing tool for commercial property owners to improve their property with a CPACE loan. CPACE loans are between the property owner and a private bank. There is no financial liability or legal liability for the county in a CPACE loan. A CPACE loan is secured by a senior lien on the property. This allows an owner to pay back their funding over a longer period of time. Our role in this is to simply record the lien in our Register of Deeds office. Again, we are not responsible for any of the loan collection. Opting into the CPACE program supports the renovation and upgrade of our commercial property stock. This could in turn support some increases in our commercial tax base. Before I go any further, are there any questions about the statewide program or the CPACE loan?
All of these qualifying improvements or conservation measures, I think they list 4 of them in the document, is that correct?
Yes, there are, the qualifying improvements are all regulated by the state. The Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina is the one who administers the loan. And so they double check to make sure the qualifying improvements qualify. However, CPACE loans are pretty flexible. And so as long as the upgrades to the property meet standard building codes, they're most likely going to qualify as an upgrade.
Right. Only commercial property.
Only commercial property, that's correct. And then included in the agenda packet is a letter from local organizations expressing support for CPACE adoption. These organizations are interested in pursuing CPACE loans in the county. So if we were to opt into this, we make that available to these organizations. Our next steps as a county are to, 1, adopt the resolution of intent, and then we would hold a public hearing at the next agenda cycle and then adopt a formal resolution into the CPACE program. Any further questions?
Just to clarify, response to Commissioner Wilson's question, it is commercial, but it could be commercial multifamily apartments.
That's right. Commercial does include industrial, agricultural, or multifamily properties with 5 or more units. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Agenda item number 7 is approval of minutes for the meetings of June 25th and July 9th, and those have been emailed to you. Agenda item number 8 is a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the County of Forsyth authorizing the negotiation of an amendment to an installment financing contract, directing the publication of notice with respect thereto, and providing for certain other related matters thereto, and an amendment to the fiscal year 27 budget ordinance to transfer funds to the County Capital Projects Ordinance to pay cost of issuance related to the 2026 limited obligation bonds, and an amendment to the County Capital Projects Ordinance to appropriate proceeds from the 2026 limited obligation bonds, interim financing into the budget reserve for future capital projects, and to appropriate the transfer from the general fund to pay cost of issuance. Terry Goodman, our Chief Financial Officer, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yes, this item will initiate the process for us to issue the $26,850,000 in limited obligation bonds that were contemplated in the CIP that was approved in the fiscal 27 budget ordinance. The structure we're recommending is to enter into an interim LOBS financing that will be a drawdown type program that will allow us to get enough bids in hand so that we can meet the LGC's requirement to have 70% of our projected long-term LOBS with confirmed bids in hand. I do think overall that should lead to a lower overall interest cost, in that we're not going to be paying interest from day one on the full almost $27 million in LOBS. This item, first part of this item, requires or asks that you authorize negotiation of an amendment to our existing 2021 installment purchase financing agreement. We're going to be utilizing the contract agreement, the financing agreement that we had in place when we did the courthouse LOBS. So therefore, we will be using that same property as collateral for this financing. Just since so many of the documents were already in place, it really made for an easier way for us to get this out on the street and get money in hand sooner. Also, you'll be authorizing us to submit the application to the LGC for this financing, to retain the bond counsel and financial advisor to assist with the issuance. You will call for a public hearing that will be held on August 13th to review the proposed financing, and also allow for an expenditure, a reimbursement expenditure for any items that we may incur prior to the actual issuance of the bonds, that we'd be able to capture them under this authorization. We're not anticipating there being any, but we have that in there just as a safeguard. The other two parts of this item really are budget matters, where we are going to reduce the amount of debt service that we have in the general fund and transfer a portion of that over to the capital project fund to handle the issuance cost for this interim financing. We do anticipate with this new structure that we won't need all the debt service that is currently budgeted in the general fund, and then to amend the capital project fund to receive that transfer from the general fund, and then also the additional proceeds that will be issued, putting that into a budget reserve until you approve projects in fiscal 28 and 29. A lot of ground to cover. I don't know if there's any questions that I can address for you.
Questions? Good, thank you.
Agenda item number 9 is an amendment to the County Capital Projects Ordinance to appropriate SCIF interest earnings to the airport element. Kimberly Bussey, our Deputy Budget Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Finance Department has identified an interest earnings on a SCIF grant for the Smith Reynolds Airport. That's a State Capital and Infrastructure Fund grant in the amount of $1,916,168. This item appropriates the interests here into the airport element and the County Capital Projects Ordinance, and specifically it'll be used for a contract with the Hoffman Building Technologies that was replaced, or that was approved by you all back in May, to replace the building automation controls in 4001 North Liberty Street. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Questions for Kimberly?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 10 is a resolution authorizing quantum meruit payment to Novant Health Employer Solutions, LLC, doing business as Novant Health Occupational Medicine. Stephen Yantz from the Sheriff's Office will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. During this past fiscal year, the Sheriff's Office had a limited contract with Novant Health Occupational Medicine for applicant drug screening services that expired on December 31st, 2025, and was not renewed since the Sheriff's Office intended on not using their services any further. However, due to a high volume of applicants being processed in May and June, Novant was utilized to provide drug screening services for applicants that did not require psychological evaluations. The Sheriff's Office received an invoice for $247.50 for those services. Since the services were provided outside the contract term, we are requesting board approval to make the payment for these services.
Any questions? Thank you.
Agenda item number 11 is a resolution authorizing quantum merit payment to Brodart Company. Yolanda Bolden, our library director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Chair. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. For a number of years, the Forsyth County Public Library has contracted with Brodart Company to acquire books to the library's collections. It's one of our vendors. But this, in 2025, the library inadvertently failed to pay 3 invoices for the fiscal year ending June 2025, but did receive fiction and nonfiction books. This resolution seeks permission to pay Brodart Company $4,601.25 on the basis of quantum merit for the reasonable and just value of products rendered to the benefit of Forsyth County.
Questions?
Yolanda, any explanation in terms of what happened? How did we miss this?
The company was sending invoices to one staff member. We've made the resolution, well, we resolved that by having them send their invoices to 3 other staff members.
Nothing else is happening behind the scenes?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Agenda item number 12 is a resolution authorizing quantum merit payment to Matrix Health and Safety Consultants, LLC. Ashley Penley from our Community Economic Development Department will brief this item.
Good afternoon. The item before you is a request for quantum merit payment related to outstanding invoices on services performed in FY26. The department executed a service agreement with Matrix Health and Safety Consultants in January 2026 in an amount not to exceed $5,000 to provide risk assessments for lead-based paint and asbestos hazards on homes receiving rehabilitation through the department's programming. These services included post-construction testing, clearance testing as well. Funds were encumbered for these services utilizing open projects within the department's grants project ordinance. However, the department underestimated the number of units requiring testing and was unable to amend the contract in a timely manner when that realization came. The department expects to continue accruing costs for these services in FY27, and staff has been updated on the county's procurement policy and contract process and will monitor units more closely for service requests in the future. The department would like to request approval for the quantum merit payment from the department's active grants in an amount of $4,580 to cover the outstanding balance with the vendor. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 13 is a resolution authorizing quantum merit payment to North Carolina Rush Triad Soccer Club, Inc., and an amendment to the fiscal year 27 budget ordinance to appropriate fund balance for a quantum merit payment to North Carolina Rush Triad Soccer Club. Kyle Wolf, our budget director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. During the fiscal year 26 budget process, the board provided funding to several organizations through the community grant process, including $75,000 for North Carolina Rush Triad Soccer Club. Those funds were going to go towards the construction of a 2,965-foot paved exercise track. Due to delays, the contract with NC Rush was not executed prior to the end of the fiscal year. Even though NC Rush began working on completing the project and has submitted invoices totaling $68,618.80. And so, again, this item is necessary to amend the ordinance to appropriate that $68,618.80 from fund balance and then approve the quantum merit payment for the work that was completed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Kyle? Thank you.
Agenda item number 14 is a resolution authorizing quantum merit payment to the Richland County Sheriff's Department. Stephen Yance from the Sheriff's Office will brief this item.
Good afternoon again. During this past year, the Sheriff's Office has had several cases, primarily the tragic homicide in Walkertown, that required expedited, specialized DNA and evidence analysis. Because of significant backlogs at the North Carolina State Crime Laboratory, the Sheriff Office utilized the Richland County Sheriff's Department Forensic Laboratory to obtain these expedited services to ensure timely investigative results. The services were provided before a contract be put in place, and we are now requesting board approval to make this payment in the amount of $18,340 for the services provided. A contract is being developed for this next year in case these needs come up again.
Questions for Stephen?
So you all had to go to South Carolina to get the expedited testing?
Captain Sloan, I'm not sure of the location.
I think the short answer is yes.
Okay.
That we are putting in place in case this comes back up, yes, sir. So right now, the state lab is about 6 months to a year out, and we did not want to wait. But Captain Sloan, you probably answer that better.
Yes, sir. The other two labs that we know of are in Utah and Virginia. The South Carolina lab was the closest one that we could actually drive to and not have to mail the evidence off.
Well, can we get our own lab between those two states that are adjacent to us?
Can we get our own?
Has anybody ever looked into that?
It's exceptionally expensive, sir.
Okay.
We apparently have one. It's just a little behind. Our state lab.
No, I'm talking about in Forsyth County.
Here. That's a different question.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
I just note this is like, I think 6 quantum merit claims in a row here, and some appear to have a rather threadbare excuse for why it's outside the purview of a contract. I'm sure our county attorney would like to have most of our obligations in that regard firmed up in a written agreement, as opposed to someone having to ask forgiveness rather than permission.
We do agree with that, sir, and we actually work with Richland County to try to get one in place before the end of the year, but we just could not make it by June 30th.
And I will say it is definitely obvious we need to shore up our process. I think the reason the board's seeing it is honestly because we are shoring up our process to where these aren't getting paid without actual board approval. I think in the past we've actually had these and no one actually knew that they existed. And so now that we have processes in place to know it exists, now we know what we need to address. So please know we'll be working on firming these up. All right, agenda item number 15 is also Stevens. It's a resolution authorizing acceptance of a grant and execution of an agreement of conditions with the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program on behalf of the Village of Clemens as part of the North Carolina's Vision Zero initiative, and a resolution authorizing an amendment to the interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and the Village of Clemens for community policing services.
So Forsyth County has been tentatively awarded a grant from the Governor's Highway Safety Program on behalf of the Village of Clemens. Clemens participates in the North Carolina Vision Zero initiative, which provides grant funding for enhanced traffic safety efforts. For this next year, Forsyth County, on behalf of the Clemens, is eligible up to $112,020 in grant reimbursements for a traffic unit deputy, a new patrol vehicle, and related equipment. Further, Clemens has requested that the grant-supported traffic unit position remain vacant until October 1st, when costs are eligible for grant reimbursements. Clemens has also implemented changes in the internet service for the facility now shared by the village and the sheriff's office, which they are now providing and paying for the internet service, and this was included in their annual cost breakdown and in the interlocal agreement. Therefore, these resolutions are needed to accept the grant from the Governor's Highway Safety Program and amend the interlocal agreement to reflect the grant reimbursements, delayed implementation, and revised cost.
Any questions for Stephen? Thank you.
Agenda item number 16 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Partners Health Management. Denise Price, our Deputy County Manager, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This item seeks authorization to enter into an agreement with Partners Health Management to reimburse operating expenses for the facility-based crisis center through fiscal year 27. The agreement does supersede any prior agreements. You may recall that mid-April, the state amended their contract with us for crisis services, extending that through fiscal year 27 and changing from a federal to a state allocation. So this allows us to continue to reimburse those operating expenses to Partners. Be happy to answer any questions.
So this is via,
Right now, it is Partners because the merger is not complete.
well, okay, will be via.
Could be, yes.
Any questions? Thank you, Denise.
Agenda item number 17 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with PSNI LLC for school nurse software licenses at the Department of Public Health. Nicole Purdy, our Assistant Public Health Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Department of Public Health is requesting authorization to enter into a 3-year contract with PSNI LLC for SNAP Health Center software licenses in an amount not to exceed $123,750. PSNI's cloud-based SNAP Health Center serves as the electronic medical record that is currently being used by the school health program for its nurses to document all nursing health services provided to Winston-Salem, Forsyth County School students. Just one of the many highlights of the software is that it is linked with the North Carolina Immunization Registry, which allows the program to have accurate, up-to-date district-wide immunization compliance information and allows school nurses to have school-specific compliance information at their fingertips. The department did seek informal bids from other school health electronic health record software companies, and PSNI LLC was the lowest bidder at an average annual cost of $41,250 for 3 years of service.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 18 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Safe Air Systems, Inc. to provide maintenance, testing, and repair of breathing air compressors at 10 county fire stations. Brock Smith, our fire marshal, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We are bringing to you today for your consideration a contract with Safe Air Inc. This is a 3-year contract not to exceed $55,953.27. This contract would allow Safe Air to provide service, maintenance, and repair to our air compressors. These air compressors are the ones that we use to fill our SCBA bottles that this board approved a couple weeks ago. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that y'all have.
Questions for Brock? Thank you.
Agenda item number 19 is a resolution acknowledging notice from the Clemens Fire Department of its intent to sell capital property valued at over $10,000 and approving this sale pursuant to Section 14 of the July 1st, 2026 agreement between Forsyth County and the Clemens Fire Department. Brock Smith will also brief this item.
Good afternoon again. Clemens Fire Department is seeking permission to sell 2 of their 2004 fire engines that they currently have. They've have been in service for a while and have had their use. Clemens will be receiving 2 new fire engines later this year, which was part of the approved CIP from the Forsyth County Fire Commission. The 2 engines being sold will be sold at fair market value through a qualified fire truck sales vendor. And the proceeds from these sales will be used to purchase new equipment such as fire hose, ladders, and other equipment for the new trucks that are coming in.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 20 is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of a contract for community portal software to Benefit LLC, doing business as Neighborly Software. Kirby Robinson, our Community Economic Development Director, will brief this item.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. Appreciate the opportunity to bring this item before you today. As background, the county has used a community portal software known as Neighborly to handle a variety of applications over the past several years. So that application does a couple of things for us. Does community grants, the ARPA program ran through it, and a lot of community development programs such as code enforcement, down payment assistance loans, owner-occupied rehab, Forsyth Rides, and IDA programs. So in the past, we've executed annual agreements for the application, but in an effort to comply, of course, with the county's procurement policy, but to generate more predictable and efficient pricing, we, under the guidance of the MIS department, bid this software for a 5-year term starting in fiscal 27. And I'll just quickly say that I think bidding software can be a tricky thing because you can have off-the-shelf software, then you have a software that's customized, and this was kind of somewhere in between. And MIS guided really a multi-department effort through that process and really appreciate them in that respect. So the purchasing department sent out an RFP in May. We received 3 responses, and the lowest cost proposal was received from Benevate LLC, doing business as Neighborly Software, and that's the total not to exceed amount of $192,000 over the 5-year term. That price includes 16 licenses that are used across the county's existing menu of services. And I'll just quickly say an analysis of that pricing. The pricing in year 1 reflects a 7% increase over the fiscal 26 amount, but that's less than the originally quoted 10% amount. So we were able to generate, I think, more efficiency in that pricing by bidding a longer term contract. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
Any questions for Kirby?
Not to get in the woods, but with this software, are the representatives going to be around for a little while for any updates or training?
It's a great question. So we've had Neighborly for several years now. They're a SaaS software, so they're established. If anything, they're expanding. There are counties and cities all across the country that are using them. Yes, ma'am.
So that means that they're going to stick around for a little while?
When you say stick around, you mean say in business?
No, not stick around in
Oh.
business. I'm talking about in terms of training staff.
Oh,
with the
okay.
new-
Luckily, we already use this, and so there's
know we
actually no transition. It's what we're using now.
Yeah, I'll just ask the question offline because I do have a few problems in terms of that Neighborly system in terms of.
I'd be happy to
making sure
talk
that-
to you.
yeah.
And I'll say different departments use this. While Community and Economic Development is representing the item, you have the Finance Department that uses it for community grants and ARPA. You have the Budget Department using it, and you've got Behavioral Health using it for their programs. So it's really a multi-department thing, and so we'd be happy to connect you with those folks.
Fair enough, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Agenda item number 21 is a resolution authorizing execution of an amendment to the agreement with Central Square Technologies LLC for its One Solution Law Enforcement Information Technology Platform System and Services in the Never Fail platform. Stephen Yance from the Sheriff's Office will brief this item.
Thankfully, this is my last one for today. So, yes, the Sheriff's Office has maintained a long-standing agreement with Central Square Technologies for its One Solution products. This supports several critical public safety platforms like our RMS, JMS, and CAD systems, as well as the Never Fail platform. Since the current agreement was executed in 2022, the Sheriff's Office has expanded the use of the system to animal services and incurred additional IT and support service costs. These costs were authorized in the contract, but a budget was not set aside in the annual amount or the not-to-exceed amount. The current contract, or the currently remaining in the contract, is $328,000, but for this year, the costs are approximately $358,000. We are requesting to amend this increase this contract by a little over $29,000, bringing the total not-to-exceed amount to $1,362,533.19. This amendment only revises the annual amounts and the increased total not-to-exceed amount. The additional funding needed for this year was included in our continuation budget. So we did plan for that. We just need to increase the contract amount.
Any questions for Stephen? Thank you.
Agenda item number 22 is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of an agreement for a computerized maintenance management system. Chelsea Swaim, our Deputy General Services Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Board. This item is to approve a contract with Brightly Software, Inc. for computerized maintenance management system services. So what this is this is the online platform that the county departments use for our maintenance and janitorial and other work order needs. Any county department or staff can log in and submit their requests here. We also use modules on this for our capital planning needs, our asset management tracking, as well as our energy and utilities tracking. So this item was bid by City County Purchasing, with bids being due on April 17th of this year. We did receive 4 responses, with Brightly being the low bidder. So this contract, or proposed contract, would be for a 3-year term beginning of July of this year and ending June 30th of 2029. The total not to exceed amount would be $318,767.42. And I will say Brightly is our current provider. We've been using their platform since 2021. And prior to that, we used their older platform, Facility Dude. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Chelsea? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 23 is an ordinance ordering the Forsyth County Community and Economic Development Department to declare a dwelling unfit for human habitation and otherwise to effectuate the purpose of the Forsyth County Minimum Housing Code. Kirby Robinson, our Community Economic Development Director, will brief this item.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. As background on this case, our department has received minimum housing code complaints regarding this property, 2884 Fraternity Church Road, dating back to 2022. The department has inspected the property multiple times and has worked over the years to identify the property's owners. After completing and updating several title searches, the department published a notice of hearing in the Winston-Salem Journal in March and subsequently issued an order to demolish the property soon thereafter. The property has not been demolished, and staff have been unable to find any interested parties in the property. It appears, based on the results of the title search, that all parties that have any interest in the property are deceased. As you can see, I think my pictures are on here. Oh, good. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. I can get over there. Thank you so much. All right. As you can see from these pictures, the dwelling was severely damaged by a fire and has continued to degrade since that time, and vegetation has sort of overtaken it. Yeah. So due to the unsafe condition of the property, typically we do a thorough inspection. We go inside, we're really trying to look at it and figure out, what are the complaints or the issues here. It's pretty obvious looking from the outside in that this has several significant minimum housing standard violations. So we have list pendants was recorded with the clerk of court. Property taxes on the property have not been paid since 2013. They total roughly $4,600. So based on all of that information and sort of the deteriorated condition of the property, we do request the board's permission to demolish the property, and the cost of the demolition will be added to the property's tax bill. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
Questions for Kirby?
Just briefly, looking at the aerial, that looks awfully close to the house next door that is in perfectly good shape, and there's no connection between the ownership.
No, we've talked to them a lot, as you can imagine, and there's not. These folks that own this, we think, again, this has been an exercise in really just trying to find folks. It's been very difficult because there are no estates recorded. The folks are deceased. We think they died sometime in 2013, 2014. And it's just one of those things that's kind of off the beaten path. And what you don't see here is there's vegetation kind of behind me that blocks it from the road. And so what we'll end up having to do is actually cut a little road in, unless they let us use their driveway to get to it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Kirby? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 24 is a resolution approving the tax collector's annual settlement for fiscal year 26 and prior years. Mike Pollock, our deputy tax assessor collector, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Unfortunately, the tax assessor collector, Amanda Markle, had an emergency today. I'm happy to brief this item for you. This is the tax collector's settlement. It's required to conduct annually by GS statute 105-373. And also the tax collector is required to provide a report of diligent efforts to collect unpaid taxes. You should have been provided an electronic copy of the settlement. It's about 300 pages, so that's like summer reading. If you want to print it out, take it to the beach. Some external factors that affect our ability to collect. Unemployment is 3.7%. Bankruptcy total impact is $210,677. And for the 2025 bills only, the bankruptcy impact was $63,770. That's over a $25,000 increase from the previous year. Looking at our collection division workload, there are over 40,000 payments made by mail or in person, and over 108,000 payments that came in electronically. We also like to think about our assessment workload during this time, because that all flows down to the collection process. This year, we handled over 10,800 appeals. That's a combination of both informal and formal appeals. And we received over 51,000 calls on our customer care. So when we calculate the collection rate, we make sure that it's not based on excluding anything like discoveries or bankruptcies. We have a hard cutoff date of June 30th. Not all counties might adhere to that, so when comparing collection rates, keep that in mind. And we like to think about where we were on January 6th. That's the past due date. And we have a little asterisk there because that's actually the mail takes a couple of days before we process all the timely payments that were received in. So there was about $24 million to collect, and by June 30th, our staff had collected in $21,262, $262,000. And the official collection rate for the year is 98.94%. So that's just shy of 99%. So we're very grateful to all the hardworking citizens that pay these taxes, and also very grateful for our wonderful staff that made that possible to collect those revenues. We also kind of mentioned here, gap bills are a tough thing to collect. That's where some folks failed to register their registered motor vehicle, and there's a little gap between when they registered their vehicle, so that's a little over 40%. We also look at the adjusted collection rate. So this is protected dollars that we can't collect due to bankruptcy or because it's already been sent to a foreclosure attorney. So that is just over 99%, 99.09% if that were adjusted. Of course, that's not our official number. If we take a look back over the last 6 years, we have our collection rates here. It takes over $32,500 in county collections just to move up by 0.01%. We also keep an eye on where the municipalities are. We want to make sure our jurisdictions have a healthy collection rate as well. You'll notice it looks a little low in High Point. It's 96.2%. However, a week after June 30th, that moved up to 99.86%. There's a really large account that our enforced collection methods helped collect. Now, our techniques, even though we think about the current collection year, our techniques flow down to all the prior years too. Our staff collected over 30% in prior year taxes this year. Prior year collections for the other jurisdictions widely vary. Bethania stands out there as being particularly low. However, that only represents $3,200. So we will make sure we get that higher for next year. And here's some good news when you think about it. The annual bills stay in our department's charge for 10 years. So when you look back over the 10th year, our collection rate is 99.91% for that 2016 that just came out of our charge. So, so in time, the money does get collected. We use various enforcement measures in our department to collect. There's debt set-off, term agreements, wage agreements, bank detachments, rent garnishments, of course, the foreclosure process, and we also have levy of personal property is available as a tool. There's a lot of crossover in this that covers some back years. Rent garnishment produced over $100,000 in collections additional this year. When you look at the 2025 year and the prior year together, the total uncollected prior year charges are now at $6.8 million. Now, when you look at the budgeted total county collections, that includes current year, that includes registered motor vehicle taxes, interest, and prior year taxes that's budgeted. That was over $351 million, and so what was collected is close to $354 million. So that was over $2.7 million above the budget amount in taxes this year. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I do not have any questions, but I do have comments relative to our achievement. And I'm used to us being overachievers in the 99%, and I see that we are struggling just a tad bit, but nonetheless, I know that our county manager is going to work on those areas of needs of improvement.
Yeah, I think this year the biggest challenge was the unprecedented increases in property tax bills due to the reappraisal. And we've never had these types of historical increases ever. And so I think that in general, more people were struggling to pay their bills on time. And so I do think that we will receive those funds at some point. I think it's just by the deadline in which we capture was a little bit more of a challenge. And so the department is looking at some strategies to inform people more about you can do payment plans. And so they're going to be incorporating coupons for individuals in the tax bills. Certainly, we'd like you to pay all of it at one time, but you could do it over a period of time. So I think just for people to know that there are other strategies. So I do think we'll get the funds. I just think it was a little bit more of a challenge.
Yes, and Friday, we'll be mailing the tax bills for 2026. And in that, if there's folks that aren't on a mortgage and they owe over $500 on real estate, there's something that are called bill coupons. So it'll have where you can cut off and have 5 separate payments and mail those in separately. And so that's something new that we haven't done before. So that's a new method we'll be using.
Well, I know how hard you guys work. It's a little different, it's a little down, but it's certainly a whole lot of work and a whole lot of calls. And I know you take a lot of pride in that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Agenda items 25 through 27 are resolutions approving refunds by the tax assessor collector. 25 is approving refunds in the amount of $27,803.88. 26 is in the amount of $12,553.67. And then 27 is a denial in the amount of $6,462.11. And then 28 and 29 are our reports. 28 is the May Human Resources Report. 29 is the June Contribution-Based Benefit Cap Report. And we are going to go back to agenda item number 5. I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair Whisenhunt.
Thank you. This is a proclamation recognizing the accomplishments of Chairman Don Martin on the occasion of his retirement. And because this is a proclamation, it will not require a vote. Whereas Chairman Don Martin, who is a native of Athens, Georgia, and a longtime resident of Tobacconville, was first elected to Forsyth County Board of Commissioners in November of 2014. Whereas Chairman Martin served as Vice Chairman of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners from 2014 to 2022, and as Chairman from 2022 to 2026. Whereas Chairman Martin served as Superintendent of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools for 19 years, leading the school system through an era of growth and accomplishments. Whereas Chairman Martin received a Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts from Duke University and Doctorate of Education in Educational Administration from the University of Kentucky. Whereas Chairman Martin played an integral role in the successful completion of the Forsyth County Building Project projects, including 3 libraries, a new courthouse, Callidium, Tanglewood Clubhouse, Dudley Watts Park at Blues Creek, Agriculture Park, and Smith Reynolds Airport renovations. Whereas Chairman Martin has been a champion for public schools through implementing a funding formula that provides an annual increase to Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools based allotment. The 2016 school bond referendum for facilities and the 2020 quarter-cent sales tax referendum for teacher supplements that were approved by the voters. Whereas Chairman Martin worked to improve economic development efforts along with Greater Winston-Salem Incorporated that resulted in over $1 billion in capital investments and nearly 2,200 jobs in Forsyth County in recent years. Whereas Chairman Martin has served on the Education Commission of the state, Research Education Laboratory Southeast, Callidium, Crosby Scholars, North Carolina Val Virtual Public Schools, Greater Winston-Salem Incorporated, Forsyth Futures, United Way of Forsyth County, Piedmont Triad Education Consortium, okay, North Carolina School Superintendent Association Executive Board, Rotary Club, Blue Ribbon Commission on Public Education, U.S. National Science Foundation Regenerative Medicine Engine in North Carolina, and Forsyth County Fire Commission. And whereas Chairman Martin is a member of the Mount Tabor United Methodist Church and sings in the choir. Now therefore be it resolved that the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners hereby recognize the exemplary service and accomplishments of Chairman Don Martin and thanks him for his outstanding and distinguished service as a member of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. This the 27th day of July 2026. And I would like to present this proclamation to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We got to get to the reception.
It's kind of a sneaky surprise. Work that into today. I thought it was later. Thank you all very much. Thank all of you. And I have one more meeting, so I'll get a last word.
You will, and we're going to do some more remarks at your reception shortly, but we do have one 1 minute video because there were a few people who wanted to send in some congratulatory messages. So we're going to play that and then we will head to the reception.
Oops.
Try it a different way.
Well, maybe you can hear it later.
It's true, good.
Don, I wish you the best in your retirement.
Congratulations, Mr. Don Martin.
You've earned it. We are grateful and so thankful for all that you've done.
First, I want to congratulate you on your upcoming retirement.
Thank you so much for your dedication, your leadership, and service for we the people. You will be missed.
Don's a great guy. The only problem he's got is that he's a Duke grad.
Your leadership while guiding our community through the challenges of the COVID period.
Well done. And as your representative, I want to give you a charge. Go have some fun.
God bless you and your family in the next phase of your service to our community.
Congratulations, happy retirement, enjoy life. Love you and God bless.
You are truly one of those leaders I have greatly admired.
I've just valued his friendship over these years.
And with that, I would like to leave you with a quote. Don't strive to make your presence noticed. Just make your absence felt. Again, congratulations and best wishes for you and the entire Martin family.
Thank you all. Thank you.